Oh, I thought.
Let's go.
Listen, I've never had any problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way. Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do. I respect the history, I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. The biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred. This is the great American motorsport. Drag racing. Prove me wrong. I'll wait. Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, June 19th, 2024. Hope you're doing well. Thank you guys so much for joining us here, Roundy Drag Racing Water Cooler. We've got a hell of a show lineup for you guys today. Fresh off a huge win, father-son win. I love these storylines. It's amazing how frequently we get these like stories of the summer. But we had an awesome one this past weekend at the PDRA North South Nationals at Maryland International Raceway when Kurt Steding and his son Ethan took the win in Pro Boost and Pro Street, respectively. Incredible performance from them. Great weekend for the PDRA. We also will be joined by the one and only drag and drive superstar, promoter, racer, all things media mogul, Tom Bailey at 3 o'clock. Excited to talk to him about Six Summer. Really cool deal. I like the format of this one. I like the time of year, the challenges that are presented by this time of year. Awesome things happening in the drag and drive space, and it's crazy, honestly, to see how the growth continues to happen. Rocky Mountain Race Week is rolling down into this part of the country next week, so it's one after another, it would seem. But guys, before we get any further along, welcome to the show, my partners in crime, Mike Carpenter, JT Hudson. What's up, boys?
What's going on, man?
You caught me off guard there with the uke. I was trying to just get my 18 minutes of practice in a day. And
looked good or sounded good, man.
We're getting there, man. I can almost play a bar song by Shabuzi. And like my goal was to not just be able to play. Like I can play
that song when that song first starts. Does that not sound like Wonderwall by Oasis? Yeah. Like the first 2 seconds of it. Every time I hear it, I'm like, oh, it's Wonderwall.
Oh, yeah, kind of, yeah. I know bar songs.
See? About got it. You kind of got to like hear it differently, you know, like because it's obviously doesn't sound quite the same as a 6-string acoustic guitar, my little bitty ukulele. But
I don't know,
you can't carry a ukulele around in your backpack, you know, or travel all over creation with it. And that's what I liked. I mean, people do. Blake does.
I was gonna say you kind of can, right?
Yeah,
you can, but I think it's a lot
fold down model.
They probably do. But I can fit my ukulele easily in the overhead storage on a plane.
Yes, I am, Jim.
I don't think it would be quite the same with a full-size guitar.
Nice. I just noticed you're wearing that.
Those are classic, man. Sophia wanted to wear it.
I thought about just wearing
racing shirt to school, and I'm like, probably can't do that, sweetheart. I love the notion, but rocking, supporting Tom, Mike, and Jim, and the whole Drink Hard gang. But I don't know that I need my 9-year-old daughter wearing that to middle school or elementary school.
Dude, it's like apple juice or whatever. It doesn't say what you're drinking.
Exactly.
Who knows? And
I sent my kid with a custom Chiefs jersey that said Hudson 69 on it, and people thought that was in poor taste. I'm like, it was Jared Allen's number. Duh. You know, you just look at them like they're stupid.
What was his celebration? The rope and the Remember that?
Yeah.
What a deal.
He came up with a new one.
He played for the Panthers for 1 year.
He never could figure out his sack celebration. I think at one time it was kind of like a dry hump kind of lunge. Yeah, and they're like, no, and then it was the calf roping, and then
it was like it was when he played for the Panthers. It was a calf rope and like a explosion or something like that. Yeah.
Well, you throw your hands up because that's when the time stops.
That was the year we went to the Super Bowl, JT. He was on the Super Bowl squad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, for the Panthers,
Congrats.
it was a rough year.
Yep.
Mike and I didn't talk for about 2 weeks after the Broncos beat the Panthers.
No, it was a good year until that. Yeah.
He went missing in action.
I'll do it again if it happens again. I will go missing again. Don't doubt me.
I got a taste of that, man. I got a taste of that with the Mavs falling to the Celtics earlier this week. Rough couple of nights for us here in the Buck household. We've really fallen in love with having a hometown team. First time we've ever really experienced that. Having a team that everybody.
I didn't see enough like anguish or anything from you guys. Yeah. You guys just kind of went radio silent. I needed to see
on to the next team,
cussing. Some.
If I know the Bucks, it's on to the next team.
Hey, no, what do you think about those? What about those Celtics, man? What do you think about those Celtics?
He's already got a hat ordered, probably. Yeah.
No, I don't. I hate the Celtics. You don't have to worry about me having any green and white in my closet. I have a Larry Bird jersey, but that's just out of respect.
No, see,
the Bucks got beep. I don't know.
Nah, it was a rough one, man. It was a rough couple of days, but I don't know. For me, it's a good thing to. I think we talk about this on the show a lot, but I think fandom. Just in general, it's weird to me that it's not as embraced in motorsports culture or specifically in drag racing. Like, why do you think that is? Like, people are so proud to rock, their local team or whatever, and JT and his Chief stuff, and you and your Panthers stuff, and mine, whatever team's winning stuff. And it's like, I do kind of wonder. What, dude? I want to associate with winners.
That was good.
It's the company you keep, guys. It's the company you keep.
It just reminds me. It just reminds me of Wes. Every time I walk through his old office in here, there's still a Denver Broncos helmet in there, like a miniature helmet.
I was a big fan.
Yeah, and then he's like,
I think one of the first times
I go, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't.
One of the first times I met Wes, I was like, "Who's your favorite drag racer?" He was like, "Man, it's got to be John Force." Like he's definitely front running.
No, my favorite drag racer is Shannon Jenkins.
It'd be an easier life. Yeah, it would be an easier life, though. Really.
But back to what you were saying about fandom.
Yeah, that is weird.
That is a thing in drag racing. We talk about it all the time. No one wants to be a fan. Everybody has to identify as a participant. And I think drag racing has played into that, to be honest with you. And then now that we're trying to make I feel like we're trying to make a transition to fans. We're doing betting, we're doing fantasy, we're doing brackets, and it is a little bit of a change.
Was very active today in our No Prep Kings.
Oh, the No Prep Kings fantasy.
I had to silence it for a couple hours.
They're the best example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's one of the places in drag racing right now, perhaps the only place, other than like World Series of Pro Mod and what I feel we do, but they have fully leaned in to celebrating fandom and encouraging people to pick someone and to fall in love with a character or despise a character.
No Prep Kings probably has that fandom going. They're probably
they're not so worried about.
Radio had it. Radio racing had it a little bit, I think. There, when everybody was going back and forth on the internet, years ago, like the Keith Berry days, Stevie Jackson, all those guys, they were always going at it.
And I think people were completely content to cheer those guys on.
They were,
but like you're right. Like the participant thing, our sport has seen so much of its growth on the back of participants. And like even if you look around our community right now, a lot of the things that are really succeeding, right? One that comes to mind for me straight away is Streetcar Takeover. And while they do have a fan following, but it's a largely participant driven deal as well. And I think that that's a great thing, but it's exciting for me to see all these fan enhancement things, because that's really what it all boils down to, is we have to find a way to improve this experience for fans, richen this experience for fans. And I do think that, obviously the gambling thing has been extremely polarizing, more so polarizing than I ever thought about. I mean, we've gotten a lot of emails here at Drag Illustrated from people that are just completely against sports gambling and don't see a value in this at all.
To each their own. But you know what? We're grown ass men or women, and we can decide for ourselves. You don't need to tell me whether gambling's good or bad. You don't have to spend your money on it if you don't want to. But if I want to, it's none of your effing business.
But I mean, I think that the fact though is that it's an important tool. Like we've got to make this. I mean, it just goes back to us talking
about
football.
When it took NFL to the next level. Whenever they introduced fantasy football, people went from watching their team play on a Sunday to watching every game because, oh, I got that guy or I'm playing against that guy. It's very important to have skin in the game, basically.
Well, it's part of the dopamine culture that we live in too.
It is.
You have to have,
you're invested.
It's no longer good enough to go to a game or watch a game. It started, then we have to do fantasy football. And then honestly, gambling makes fantasy football, the dopamine hit from gambling makes fantasy football boring. So, or fantasy anything. Yeah. And so we continue to like accelerate what it takes for us to be engaged, whether we like it or not. And I think drag racing has lagged behind in that. And I think that we've kind of avoided that dopamine.
Because we put all of our eggs in the basket of the live event experience, right? Where it's like, oh, you got to get out to the racetrack and smell the nitro and smell the tire smoke and feel the vibrations and like that. We've probably gotten as far as that's going to get us, which is probably, we should all be pretty proud of how far this sport has come in 70 years, considering we haven't had that other piece of the puzzle, right? We haven't had that other.
I got this, Wes. You subscribe to this, what's it called?
Sports Business
Journal. Seth's blog, Seth Godin, this guy. He sent out this email. That's where I got this dopamine culture deal. And he sent this like graphic, and it says the rise of dopamine culture, and it's got all these things: sports, journalism, video, music. But for sports, it says slow traditional culture, play a sport; fast modern culture, watch a sport; dopamine culture, gamble on a sport. So like it's like it like, for example, video is slow culture was film and TV, then fast modern culture, video. Now dopamine culture, reels, images, view a gallery on a wall, then fast culture, view on your phone. Now you got to scroll as fast as you can to see images on your phone on Facebook. Like we're continually seeking those dopamine hits. And I mean, I don't know what that says about us or as a culture.
What do you do when you have like, okay, you're in a doctor's office and they tell you, oh, we'll be with you in just a second. Go have a seat. What do you immediately do as soon as you sit down? You'll look around at everybody and be like, oh, the weather looks nice. I mean, you grab your phone and you start just scrolling.
Everybody is. Have you ever looked up? I've caught myself like in a waiting room or anywhere like that, and I'm on my phone and I look up and look around, and everybody else in the whole room is head down in their phone.
It drives me bonkers.
And I'm like, oh, I'm just going back to my phone then.
Right. When I walk in a bar and there's like a group
which
of
is frequent
sitting at a table and they've all got their phones out. I always walk by like, hey, y'all texting each other? You know, just
JT,
making fun of him.
If you ever hang out with JT and he's trying to tell you some story that never ends, and you, God forbid, you need to call somebody or text somebody, he's like,
I hear about it.
Oh God, just ignore me then. Why don't you? No attention span.
But it really is a thing.
My feelings.
And I do feel like there's opportunity in it. Like, because we're all quick to, shoot these things down or shoot holes in them. Like, oh, times have changed. Times are always changing. Like, that's just part of it. Like, things are always evolving. Technologies come and go. I mean, look no further than the Blockbuster example, Toys R Us. There's all these examples of things that like were iconic businesses or something that you thought would, no matter what, stand the test of time, that completely go away. And I just feel like you've got to evolve with it. And we have, in many ways, in my opinion, only recently started to embrace, as a sport, drag racing, have only recently started to embrace fan culture. And it's unrealistic to think that we're going to grow the sport of drag racing on the back of someone going and buying a race car. Like, obviously that would be fantastic, but it's not the only way to do it. I mean, if we can richen the fan experience and make it more fun to be at an event, make it more fun, more enjoyable, a richer experience to follow along online or to watch the live broadcast or to whatever, all these streaming platforms that exist, you've got to find ways to leverage those and embolden, or not, that's not the right word, improve those experiences overall. And it feels like we're a little late to the party, but it's exciting that we're there. Like, I'm glad that we have finally, there are people in this community finally that are going, okay, we can't just, it's not all about street legal drag racing or junior dragsters or finding another way to get them to go drag racing. We want them to go drag racing. That's fine. But we need to be focused on how we can grow the fan following. And I'm excited to see these things. Like for me, Drag Race Bracket Bonanza, I'm not a gambler. I don't feel like I follow any, like I struggle with the odds and all these different things, but like Drag Race Bracket Bonanza, it's breathed some new life into my following of NHRA national events. You know, like I am admittedly a door slammer guy, and I feel like I keep my finger to the post of all things fast door slammer drag racing. But like the Top Fuel Funny Car have, you know, it's not as part of my life the same way door slammer drag racing is. And it's been a lot more enjoyable for me to follow along with these races, especially the ones that I don't go to, because of Drag Race Bracket Bonanza, because I've got skin in the games.
That's what March Madness brackets.
That's what I was going to say. March Madness. I mean, even ladies,
20 years ago.
Ladies, guys that don't follow the sport in an office and everybody fills one out. I mean, they're paying attention because, hey, I'm beating Bob over there who watches every game.
Yeah. And now it's on to the next level with the gambling. And now we've got JT's new show, Who You Got, with Elon Warner and Rex Simmermaker from Winlight Bets.
Yep.
And we're embracing that as well. And NHRA has named Play NHRA, which is like their initiative for the gambling, as the title rights sponsor for this weekend's national event at VMP, which also we've got the new format, the 2-day format that they're unveiling this weekend as well. And when we talked about that whenever it first happened, but I think it was a little bit of a stroke of genius. If you look at the weather forecast, they're going to be very well served by that 2-day event this weekend, and sort of shifting the focus to night racing and really taking advantage of it. Because if you look at the weather, cue the music, JT, and the green screen. If you look at the weather,
not a mic.
for this weekend, it's going to be hot, like even hotter than normal at Virginia. So I think they're going to be well served by that nighttime racing.
Was Tyler Crossnose kind of hot take when we were talking about like Gage Herrera came out as a favorite? What was it? Minus 426. I mean, like, we'll probably never see this when these lines come out and these odds come out for maybe the rest of the time in our life.
No, you can't even bet money. You can't. I mean, JT, are you betting anything on Gage Herrera? Because it's just the risk is. I mean, let's say he slips up.
So you have to bet $426 to win $100.
Yeah,
and I mean, like, so Matt Smith has the next is the second favorite at plus 1487. I think
that's absolute insane.
I mean, that's crazy, right? That's almost 1,000 difference.
So explain that.
Like, I just want to
explain
bring
that. Explain that to what everyone to what that means. Like you said, you would have to lay $426 to potentially win 100. But then you could bet 100 to win 1,400.
Yeah,
or 1,300 and whatever the number.
1,487. Yeah.
For
on Matt, who was in second. But that was Tyler Crossnose hot pick, kind of upset pick, was that maybe Matt Smith goes out and stops the freight train that is Herrera. And because Matt Smith is tested there in the hot weather, and he has a lot of data of running there in the hot weather. So that could be pretty big. The other hot take that we had was probably in pro stock. Bo Butner is coming back this weekend, and he's won there before, and so is Jed Coughlin. And they're the only two that's won there before. So, and the odds are pretty good on them too. So
let's talk about the format a little bit, because I do think that this has been it seems for us, I think we've kind of completely resigned ourselves to this as a functional model. For those that don't know, the NHRA made headlines a few months ago when they announced that the NHRA Virginia Nationals at the aforementioned Virginia Motorsports Park would be contested as a 2-day event instead of the traditional 3-day NHRA national event. This was big news. A lot of people talking about it, and we had experience with it a few months prior at with the Skag Power Equipment Pro Superstar Shootout presented by Johnson's Horsepower Garage down at Bradenton Motorsports Park. We adopted that format with a Thursday night qualifying session under the lights, following it up with 3 runs on Friday, and it was massively well received. I think it was arguably one of the greatest shows in the history of drag racing, the greatest single day happening in the history of drag racing, and I had minimal. Actually, I can't identify a single person
off the top of my head that pushed back against it. And I've seen that here as well. Like, I haven't seen a lot of negativity or any sadness around it. I mean, Josh Hart has spoken positively of it, Sean Langdon, J.R. Todd, a plethora of others, Alexis DeJoria. I do think that it works in a lot of ways. It does make for a barn burner of a day for those teams. But for the fans, what an absolute bargain for them. They're going to get to see 3 rounds of nitro qualifying. I do think the only negative that I have seen about it is that they haven't had, that they're not running into the night the way that I think a lot of people would like for them to.
Yeah.
And that, obviously we're not here setting the NHRA event schedule or working with these track operators on how they do their schedule. But I do think that I feel
I
like
guess they aren't running
a little bit of a missed opportunity here.
The Saturday night schedule
really
could be later. I see what you're saying. Yeah. I honestly thought the Saturday night schedule started later. I guess I'm just now seeing this.
Tyler talked about that
after they initially announced it. Remember, the schedule was not, I don't think, set in stone when they initially announced the 2-day format. And I guess I just assumed the Saturday night deal was going to go later. But yeah, they've got it. The Saturday night Too Fast, Too Tasty is set to go off at 6:30, but it could run later. And I mean, maybe they intentionally delay the event to go a little bit later with the weather forecast.
Tyler even talked about Q2, that it's going to be so hot that, you could see some teams maybe not run in Q2, but then on Sunday, if you didn't run it, you might be sorry, because you're not going to get that data.
I got to be honest, man. I think we've got to get to a point where those teams don't have a choice to not make that run. Like, I understand it from an economic standpoint.
Yeah.
But I got to be like, so I've seen it happen hundreds of times, right? And it's not, and nobody's necessarily a bad guy for that. But I do think that in those situations, especially when you have, these fields that are right at full or just shy of full, man, the fans deserve to see. And I don't mean to completely switch over here, but this is an interesting thing that I saw on Sports Center earlier this week. Michael Johnson, you remember him, like the Olympic athlete, the track and field star. He's launching a new track and field promotion I think it's called Grand Slam Track or something like that. But it was, I have zero interest in track and field, but all the things that he said in his interview talking about why they're doing what they're doing, it really spoke to me. He goes, the fans deserve to know who's coming. And that was like their first order of business, was to contract their athletes to participate, where it's like, you don't have to wonder if you go to Grand Slam Track and Field event 1, you don't have to wonder who's going to show up. You don't have to wonder who might not make the toe or who might sit this one out or who may skip this round. And I do think as our sport continues to make this move and try to grow our fan base, there are some of those things. The gambling situation is a prime example, correct? I mean, like,
because you put money on that,
I mean, and what if
because you can bet on a number 1 qualifier as well. Yeah,
that guy decides not to come. He's got a family trip scheduled that weekend, or business is booming, and he's got to skip a couple of races, whatever. I mean, we've seen that happen multiple times. We've seen Mike Salinas take time off, at various, and he's, it wasn't that long ago we saw the Elite Motorsports team skip the entire Western swing, right? Like they just skipped it. And that is something that, and we're going to see some of that in the coming weeks, because I believe that there's going to be some cars that sit out the Western swing just for business reasons, economic reasons, what have you. And that's something that we're going to have to to work our way through as a sport, because again, swinging all the way back to No Prep Kings, I think that's been a big part of their program. Is the fans know that they're going to see Ryan Martin, they're going to see Justin Swanstrom, they're going to see, Sean Murder, Nova Ellington, et cetera. And the list goes on. And that is a part of your product as you move forward. And it's this delicate balancing act of being a competitive league and a sport first, and being an entertainment product. And it is, I think everybody kind of finds their way there in different lengths of time or whatever, the circumstances change. The other thing that Michael Johnson said on that ESPN Sports Center piece was that they were going to pair the world's greatest track and field competitors, a fan experience that is second to none. They're going to ramp up the production and the pomp and circumstance of these events. And then secondarily, not necessarily secondarily, but also they intend to bring a storytelling component similar to what we see from UFC and Formula One with, their various behind the scenes shows and whatnot. So it feels to me like there's clearly a blueprint. Like there are obviously conversations happening in conference rooms and boardrooms around all of sports that focus on these things that we're talking about. So it's nice to see drag racing start to arrive there, guys.
Before we move on, if you are into this kind of stuff, Elon puts together, and they have a thing on over at Bracket Bonanza. You can sign up for Denzi's Deets, and it gives some killer insight to racers and the track and everything.
History,
like Steve Torrance would be a great pick this weekend. He is like historically great at this track, and so that's another good pick.
Yeah,
but if you can go over there and sign up for it, and man, it is some spectacular information. I mean,
it really is incredible.
More than you can almost take in.
We're going to publish it on dragillustrated.com.
Yeah. Well, hey, Wes, do you think that they'll, just looking at the more detailed schedule here, do you think that they'll adjust the schedule for Saturday for the NHRA event based on the weather and the fact that I feel like you said, this is a little bit of a miss with the 3 runs. And I think that they're starting it early enough to where they're giving themselves cushion in case something goes wrong or it does get backed up because they've got 3 pro sessions in one day. But it just seems like, man, the whole thing should be back several hours.
When is E3?
Well, Q3 is at 6:30. But like if you just back the whole schedule up like 2 hours to where it forced it more into a night session or even longer than that. I mean, it just seems like with this new format, this would have been the time to try that, in my opinion.
It's surprising to me that you would make this type of change and not get everything out of it that you possibly could, right? Like for me, Clay Milliken talks about this all the time, that if you've got cars that shoot flames out of them and you can see them at night and you can't see them very well at the day or during the daytime hours, this doesn't seem like a difficult decision.
Well, because now you're ended up in a situation where you're basically going to have these guys making 3 runs in the hottest conditions on this day, which is,
I mean, I put lights on my lawnmower and went out and mowed it in the dark the other night.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and you've got to,
there's not much you can do on Sunday,
really.
But that Saturday deal should be more of a Saturday night.
But think about it through the lens of the facility that you're going to. Like, I think an argument could be made at some of these lesser well-lit facilities, but you're talking about one of the best tracks, the best facilities in the country.
LED lighting all the way through.
LED lighting, like they're prepared to do night racing. And
what about making it a Friday, Saturday?
95 degrees during the day and going to be 70s in the evening and at night. Man, I'm looking for that nighttime under the lights session. I would have started the whole thing later in the day. But I also understand that they have a lot of cars on the property. And to your point earlier, Mike, if they have a snafu of any type, they run the risk of having a late night. But man, I've seen these late nights be absolutely fantastic. Like there's been a couple of times. I mean, I remember a few years ago, I was at the Texas Motorplex and it was an unfortunate situation. There was a couple of oil downs that took forever to clean up and the whole show drug into the night. But the end product was pretty spectacular. Seeing Brittany Force and Steve Torrance burn down the drag strip under the lights at the Texas Motorplex at 9-10 o'clock at night. Like, I don't know that it's all bad. There are parts of our sport that I think we just got to lean into instead of lean away from. And one of them is that it's more enjoyable to consume under the lights. It just is. I mean, I think nighttime concerts are more attractive than daytime concerts.
Yeah. What about making the whole thing a Friday, Saturday instead of Saturday, Sunday? If it's going to be a 2-day event.
You know what I think about that? I love the Saturday night finish. I just think that the racers should finish in front of the fans and everybody feed off each other. We saw it the pro race. I mean, the racers, they feed off that energy from all the fans being in the stands and vice versa. I think the fans actually getting to see these race teams, how invested they are and how much it means to them when they get that win or even when they're going deep into eliminations. I mean, it's just bonkers. It's fun to watch. It
culminates like throughout the day. And it really, to me, it's the example that I kind of come back to all the time is like the Saturday night prize fight. Like that stuff happens on Saturday nights. And when it does, interestingly, some of these big boxing pay-per-views that have happened in Saudi Arabia, like the last few fights with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, those happened at like really odd times. Like the pay-per-view started at 11 o'clock in the morning and all this stuff. And it massively impacts pay-per-view buys. It massively impacts overall fan interest. I saw Chael Sonnen a UFC fighter turned analyst and YouTuber. He talked about how he lost almost all interest in the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder fight rematch because it happened in the middle of the afternoon. You know, he's like, I'm not programmed to watch that stuff in the noon hour or whatever, or right around there. I watch
in the noon
hour,
in the noon.
Over the noon hour. And I think there's some truth to that, man. So, hey, I want to talk to our next guest about some of these economics of it, because one of my favorite parts about the Steding family racing operation, P2 racing operation, is that it is a family affair. They're playing hard on the weekend, but they're back in the office or on the job site Monday morning. It's an incredible thing to see. And I think they may be able to speak to us a little bit about the impact of a change of format, like for the NHRA National Event Trail going from 3 days to 2 days, and how that would impact their team. I saw Jim Parks, a top alcohol funny car racer, talk about one less night at a hotel for them would, over the course of a season, save them probably 10 grand, which would be for some of these bigger operations, Nitro Funny Car, Top Fuel, Pro Stock operations that have dozens of people working on them, seemingly, it would save them a tremendous amount of money. So anyways, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'll bring on Kurt first, and then we'll bring on his son, Ethan. We'll have them on here together. Kurt, congratulations, man. What a weekend, eh?
Man, it was good. It was pretty good.
That's a pretty good way to celebrate Father's Day, right?
It's been a pretty good way to celebrate Father's Day, and it's a pretty good way to get me out of the finals. I've been in the finals a lot.
There is no doubt about it, man. For those that don't know or just joining us now, Kurt Steding, his son Ethan Steding, had a hell of a weekend this past the last few days at Maryland International Raceway, the PDRA North South Nationals. Always great seeing door slammers at MIR. It's one of my favorite tracks on the PDRA tour, one of my favorite tracks in the country. A lot of history up there, a rich drag racing tradition, and what a weekend the PDRA had. Pro Boost, as always, has quickly established itself as one of the most competitive classes in drag racing. It's crazy how far the class has come, being still relatively new, early in its life, I would say. What do you make of just the level of competition we're seeing in Pro Boost right now, Kurt? I mean, you take out Melanie Salemi in the final. It felt like a bit of a coin toss, maybe happen on the starting line or who could make the trip. But what a weekend of drag racing.
The competition's really tough, and it's nice. It's nice to just know that you have that you still get that feeling in your stomach. Am I going to hit my light right? Is Todd going to hit the tune right? Which happens most of the time. The track was tricky. I mean, you could see the track was tricky for everybody. The sun was beating on it. I heard it was like 140 degrees.
Wow. The
track at one point. I mean, that sun was just so hot down there. And we were on the outside looking in the third qualifier. I was not qualified yet.
That's about the worst feeling in the world, especially with that group of racers where there were guys that DNQ'd that could win, right? I mean, the people that are that don't make the show, more than likely any other race they would choose to attend to would be a top tier car or a threat to win. So it's an amazing thing what they've got going on within the PDRA. What do you make of, you mentioned Todd Tutterow, and let's go ahead, JT, bring Ethan on. I think Ethan's driving around somewhere. He's probably doing the hard work. Ethan, whoa, real quick. Doing?
What's up?
Well, I'm a little surprised because when I saw your winner's circle photos, you had like a little bit more hair on your head.
Oh yeah,
summertime.
Yeah, just cut it off yesterday.
Just why?
Oh, it's summertime. Out working out here. It sucks.
I figured you lost a bet. My dad would have made me shave my head, that he always wanted me to have like a military buzz cut, flat top. Kurt, did you make him cut his hair?
No, I didn't. But usually we used to have that bet when he ran the junior. He would say, okay, you're buzzing your hair out, or I would make the bet for him. You're going to buzz your hair if you don't make it this. So.
I love it, man. Well, what a weekend to put both those cars in the winner's circle same time. And it's been a wild deal for you, Ethan. I mean, whenever your dad sent me pictures of your new hot rod over the winter, I was like, oh my God, these guys are not screwing around. They've got the latest, greatest LJR, Larry Jeffers race car, Noonan Power, the best guys involved. And you've come out swinging. We've really loved watching Pro Street kind of emerge. I've always been a fan of Outlaw 10.5 racing. Some of the best drag racing I've ever been a part of were those early Orska days and kind of the glory days of Outlaw 10.5. And to see it having this resurgence is fantastic. But what do you make of this early success? I mean, it's not often that you dive into this and are in the championship hunt, winning back-to-back races, looking as good as you guys do. I mean, I guess a lifetime of being at the drag races with your pop, running juniors. I mean, clearly you've learned the way, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate it. It's 2 finals in a row. That's what's happening. But I've talked to Todd at the beginning of the season. He was like, "We've got ourselves a champion car. We just need you as a driver." And so I think I'm showing that. And it's awesome to be out here. The last 2 races, there was no one next to me in the finals. Not the way we wanted to do this, but it's how racing is. And yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
It was a wild weekend up at Maryland International Raceway.
I mean, it was crazy.
Crap.
Just watching it, it was totally different than a lot of the PDRA races that we see. Just navigating the track conditions, navigating the heat. As you guys have gained experience doing this and worked with Todd Tutterow, what is that like an environment that you guys feel like you thrive in now? This is for you, Kurt and Ethan. Is that an environment that gives you guys the advantage as kind of veterans out there and with this veteran team that you have?
Oh, for sure. I mean, what we didn't know, we now know. You know, Todd turned me into, I was a pretty good driver before I met Todd. And, you know, Todd's been around a long time. I mean, he's a champ. He's King Tut. What we don't know, we know now.
Yeah. I mean, that's where he cut his teeth on all the backwoods tracks in the summer and the heat, and no track was perfect. And I do feel like it's gotten to a point where that's the expectation. And then when it you know, becomes unperfect, we see the cream really rise to the top. And I don't think that's a terrible thing. I mean, I know that that's looked down upon, or the track's always got to be, you know, on kill, and the tuners always want to be able to have their A tune up in it. Yeah. And I feel like this past weekend was one of the most exciting events that PDRA's had in quite a while.
That's another thing. Todd and Ty, I mean, I can't say enough about them. That second round, the track was real hot. We knew we had a tough component against Kincaid. I mean, that dude's been unstoppable at PDRA. He just lost his first race, I believe, Virginia, right? And so we knew we had a tough competition. And right before I was rolling up to the burnout box, Ty came back and told me what he did to the car and what all I'm going to feel. And that's exactly what I feel. I mean, Ty is a bad dude. And I know he's learning a lot from his dad and stuff still, too. But that dude knows his stuff. And I really appreciate those guys.
Yeah. Having those guys in your corner, like, there are a handful of people that can come in and turn your program around, you know, in our sport, that can really come in and with confidence say, hey, we're going to do this, 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 and this, and this is the result we're going to have. And I've been blown. I've loved to see Todd, you know, like, I think that to see him out here still racing is one thing, and I'm super excited about that. But to see the way he's turned this into a business and turned it into something where, you know, YO Motorsports, you ring the phone, and if you're struggling or lost or want to be competitive or maybe outside of that window, they can turn you around. I mean, how did you get to know, like, what's the backstory, Kurt? How did your paths cross with Todd Tutterow? Like, what's the story?
I'll try to make it as short as possible, but, you know, we ran a clutch car for a while up north here, and we were really successful at it. Went away on a snowmobile trip, broke my foot. Didn't know it. I knew it hurt. I didn't know I broke it. It grew back funny. I couldn't push my clutch anymore. And I just couldn't even hold the clutch, because there's a lot, you know, in a pro mod, you push that clutch, as soon as you go up on the gas, it kicked my foot right off. So it wasn't my leg, it was my foot. And one race, I just couldn't qualify. PDRA came to dragway 42. I couldn't even qualify. As soon as I put my gas up, boom, car would take off. So I couldn't even get a number. And I just said, well, it's time we put an automatic in. Went over, met Todd. He happened to be at the race. And we made a deal, and he came over and tuned. We set the track record where we were. He said, I'm here to stay for the race. We won at the race. And, man, I'm like, man, I need you part of my team. And we just clicked off. We're like, you know, we're like brothers. The whole thing's like a family. That's what's nice. I mean, his wife, my wife, Ty's wife, Brad's wife, everybody gets along. So it's like camping at the track. So
and we see it every time we see you guys in action. Like, you're there and you mean business, but you're also going to have fun. You're going to do it together. You're going to do it with a smile on your face by and large. And I think that's probably one of the real special things about our sport, is that so many people are able to do it as a family. you know what I mean, that you get to bring your wife and kids, and there's a pathway to get your son or daughter in a car and get them involved. I mean, I think it's an amazing thing what you guys have built. And I think it's also oftentimes the secret sauce. Like when you see these teams like become dynasties or have continued success,
continuity,
typically it's that continuity, the same group of people that matters a lot. And you don't have to look much further than the teams that have kind of a never-ending cycle of different people involved, or a different shot guy this week, or a different guy helping you on this. That typically is not a recipe for success.
It's not. No, it's doing the same thing every time is really helpful. But I'll tell you about the PDRA. It is the family place to race. And then when we're done and you want to go have a beer in the pits next to you, or 12 pits time, we're stopping over. They're stopping over our pits. It's just a good time. So we work hard during the day. I mean, our guys really work hard during the day, especially in the heat we were just in. And then to just be able to have a couple beers later and kick back on a lawn chair, it's awesome.
It's hard to beat, man. It's hard to beat. So do you, Ethan, switching back to pro street, did you have did you have an affinity for that style of racing, or what? Because I mean, I'm sure, did the conversation come up, we'll run another pro mod, or did you always like the small tire stuff?
My dad and his with his C7 that he had that Scotty Cannon owns now, the talk was we're gonna run the Noonan 49 with the roots blower, that same setup we have now in the pro street car. We were gonna run that in the Corvette, but run Elite Top Sportsman with it. That was the plan for. That was planned for a while. I'd say about 2 years. It was the plan, and eventually I came to my dad and I was like, I don't see myself bracket racing going 200 mile an hour. I don't want to do it. I don't see myself being able to look over. Well, I don't even know what they do in those fast bracket cars. But so Todd helped us out with it. We found the pro street. It was growing. Tyler Crosno, thanks to him for bringing that class around. And Todd hopped on a car, and I was surprised with the pro street car. So that was the...
Well, dude, and it's not like people forget that Todd has crew chiefed, raced 10.5. He did a lot. I mean, he's done...
That's where he got the name King Tut.
Yeah, I mean, he's been down that road, you know? So it was no surprise to me, especially to see them be successful early on. I remember, I mean, whenever there was a really active race season overseas, and they ran 10.5W over there in Qatar, I mean, he's got so much experience on that tire in, not necessarily the conditions, I guess, you had this past weekend, but he's run that tire a lot. So it wasn't at all a surprise for me. And I kind of like seeing you guys compete in separate categories. Like, that way you're both racing at a professional level. You're both racing in marquee categories, but we're not going to.
You wouldn't have that Father's Day moment that you have, like this past weekend if you didn't, right? So,
right.
I mean, it is definitely a cool deal. So you debuted the new car, Kurt, and that's kind of put you over the edge. We talked about all your final rounds, most notably the World Series of Pro Mod in 2023. That one probably will never, the sting may never go away from that one, but maybe you're over the hump now. So what's put you guys over that hump, and what are you looking forward to the rest of the year?
Well, at first, if you don't mind me backing up for a second, and so the last time I won in the Pro Mod was 2 years ago at Maryland.
Yeah, you won 2 out of 3 at Maryland.
Yeah,
in the past 3 years.
2 out of 3. I had to miss one year for my knee, but so that's really the last time I won. And then you look at all the finals, and I'm like, I was talking to Wendy. I'm like, can I just get out of? You start feeling bad about what we're spending as a family, and like, am I over with?
Don't look at that. You can't look at those. Don't look at those numbers.
No. So now I'm like, I'm ready to roll. I'm ready to tear it up. I was having a red light problem last 2 races. I got that out of my head. I fixed what I was doing wrong, because I was doing something wrong. I don't want to give anybody my tips, or at least what I think I figured out. But I'm ready to tear it up, man. I mean, winning this weekend for both Ethan and I, we both moved into the #1 spot for the championship at PDRA. I know I'm competing with Todd, and that shows you what a man he is. I mean, if you look at it, first round, Todd and I are lined up together. It sucks, but we got to do it. So we both have an 019 light, both identical. And then I happen to have a little more traction in the 60 feet, and I was able to pull ahead on him. But it just shows you what kind of guy he is. A lot of people think, how can you race your tuner? All he has to do is fix it a little bit. That doesn't happen over there. He wants to give me the opportunity, and if I take him on the tree, I take him. If he takes me, he takes me. That's the way it is.
But it's awesome. He didn't give you nothing, right? 019, you guys were identical. I mean, that's pretty crazy because I think there's other people that would go, hey, do you want to go out there and, put away the guy in E1 that's footing the bill on this thing? But he's going to go up there and make you earn it. And I just think that's an amazing thing to see you guys race so clean, race heads up, drag race, and let the chips fall where they may. I mean, it's pretty, but it does. It speaks to you, speaks to Todd. But that's the way we want to see this. I mean, we go back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. We got to do what's right for the fans. And I truly believe that there's some momentum in door slammer drag racing and pro mod style racing right now that the fan following is building. Like these people such as yourself, Kurt, even you, Ethan, as a relative fresh face. I mean, we're starting to see fan followings develop and people cheering for you. And like, I look at the turnout of people you guys had at World Series of Pro Mod. Shit, I almost had to add stands to house everybody that came down to support you guys. But that's, I mean, I hope, I mean, the same way you feel like you had a breakthrough moment as a driver this past weekend and kind of got through whatever ceiling or mental thing was there. But it's also like, I think our sport's having that. Like, I think it's specifically in the door slammer ranks. Like they've achieved a lot of success, and I don't know what's next for the, stars and cars of the NHRA Top Fuel Funny Car Pro Stock, but outlaw door slammer drag racing has some traction right now that is palpable. Like there are big things happening in this space, and it's great to have people like you guys that are so committed to what we're doing out here. Go to all the races, participate in every way that you possibly can. Are you guys feeling some of that fanfare? I mean, obviously we want to see the crowds continue to grow at these PDRA races, but it did feel, despite very hot temperatures and kind of a rough weekend to spend at the racetrack, I felt like the fans were headed in the right direction at MIR.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I know one time I was sitting in the RV and my dad comes in and he's like, someone wants your autograph. And I was like, what? I ain't even. But I mean, yeah, for sure. We are seeing it a lot. And I definitely noticed at Maryland there was a lot more fans. And so that's a great thing for this sport. So it's what we need.
100%.
What was really cool was when we were in Norwalk the week before, or a couple weeks ago. And we invited a lot of friends up because it's 2.5 hours from our house. We consider that like our local PDRA track. And the nice thing was our pits were so full. PDRA gave us a little extra room. I think I put like 35 tickets on will call, and I owed them money at the end because we used so many of them. But the nice thing is when you can watch the video on Facebook or on wherever of these pro mods, and it's nothing like watching them in person. And some people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you do that. And I was telling you that it's pretty rough looking. I look at it too. I watch him and I'm like, man, we got a hot track here. I don't know what's going to happen. I almost have to turn my head, but I know my boy will do the right thing. I think we caught him pedaling twice this weekend. He really wasn't allowed to do that, but I think he's doing a good job at it. But it's just to see it in person is unbelievable. And somehow we got to figure out how to get more people to the track, right?
I think we're finding, I mean, it's happening. Well, I mean, I keep telling these stories.
Invite your friends, invite your families, invite your coworkers,
It's true. And I think that we see that, like, that's something that we probably don't. And I know that with our events, we try to be really generous with that type of thing. Like you ring me up and it's like, hey, I've got 40 friends that want to come. And it's like, yeah, here's tickets, because they're not coming, right? Like most of the time, those people aren't coming because they don't live local. They're not hardcore fans, but they've got an interest or they're invested in you or your family. So they want to go support. And I would love to, I mean, Steve Matusik at Aeromotive Fuel Systems many years ago launched an initiative with SEMA, like bring your friend to the track, because that really kind of is the challenge that we all, one of many right now, is just bringing folks to the racetrack and introducing them to our sport. And I think the shows are getting so much better. I mean, I go back to some of the early days of, the ADRL and even the PDRA not too terribly long ago, these crazy long days that when you think about it through the lens of a fan who's not getting the thrill of driving a car or is not getting the validation of working on a car and seeing it perform on the racetrack, man, we got to tighten that up and make this a little more enjoyable for them. And I think it's happening. I think that is happening very quickly. Yeah, Mike asked you guys about the rest of the season. I'm anticipating you guys back at World Series of Pro Mod, but what's the gossip in the pits right now? I mean, what's the talk amongst the pro mod, pro boost, pro nitrous contingent right now, just where things are, like a little bit of a state of the union. We do see car count down a little bit in the nitrous category. What's your take on that? I mean, it's pretty news, in my opinion. Ed Burnley, like a lifelong nitrous racer, making the switch to a blower. What's your take on that? Or is there a way to preserve nitrous racing? Has that ship sailed? I mean, as someone who's obviously very close to this situation but removed, what's your take?
I feel like it is happening to nitrous a little bit. It seems like it's going away, and then next thing you know, a couple more cars will show up. Maybe some of the guys are just feeling, hey, these guys are over here running low 60s. We're struggling to run high 60s, blowing stuff up. I mean, don't think we don't blow up. We're trying to run fast. We're running on the edge, and we blow up. It just happens. And I like the way Tommy does it, though. I like the nitrous class is split up, though.
I think that's something what's special. What's different about PDRA is that they got two different classes. So it really makes me wonder what's going to happen with that.
Me too. I mean, go ahead.
It does make you wonder. And I remember being at Halsey's track, 6 weeks ago for his game. It seemed like the nitrous cars we were kicking their butts pretty easy. And I know they try to get their weight down to get it faster, and you really can't slow us down anymore. And they're at the weights where you can't achieve the minimum weights anymore. Or I'm sorry, to cut them out of the car.
It's a weird situation. Me too.
But it's pretty cool to watch those things that are sticking out of our hood run down the track.
Yeah, I mean, I went through it with the guys this morning, but it's like I looked at the two fields using Maryland as an example, and if we would have had those classes as one, we would have had 16 cars from 364 to 371, and we'd have had 10 blower cars and 6 nitrous cars. And there is a part of me like I agree with what you're saying, Ethan, that it is part of the what's special about the PDRA. And I know that there are tons of racers that have no interest in racing other power adders, right? They want to race the baddest blower cars and they want to race the baddest nitrous cars. And it is really tough. But I do think, man, these things ebb and flow. I mean, bell bottoms went out of style. Now they're back. It became fashionable to split these two types of cars up. I can't help but wonder if we're looking at a bell bottom moment where it might make more sense to bring them together, because I love what I want to see is Kurt Steding race Tommy Franklin. And maybe that's why World Series of Pro Mod is special. Or, I want to see Melanie Slemmy race Jim Halsey. Like, I want to see those matchups from a fan perspective. But I definitely
and you see more of those races pop up now too. Yeah, the big shootout races where all the classes are combined. So it is, to Ethan's point, it does become kind of the separator for PDRA. At one point, PDRA was just I don't want to say another, but they followed the model of splitting the classes up, which was common, and now it's kind of uncommon. And so I think maybe it is what continues to separate that from these the big shootout, the off-season races.
Well, it was really cool in the last World Series to see Halsey, be runner up, and he could have easily taken it down too and been the winner.
Yeah, to me, I can't help but feel, like I said,
but there is a little bit too. There's Kurt, you were saying earlier about at Cecil County, you've got Jim Halsey, you've got Franklin. I think there's a couple more cars you could lump in that, and then there's everybody else when it comes to nitrous. You've got those guys that are able to always run head and shoulders, which kind of always seems to be the case with nitrous. You've got guys that are at the head of the pack, and then everyone else sort of struggles to keep up with those guys. And then from your perspective on the blower side, you use those guys as the example, but there is kind of a gap there, down to the rest of the field. So it's more like Halsey and Franklin and a couple others, and then all of the Pro Boost guys kind of fit together in a tighter window. And I think we saw that also with World Series of Pro Mod, where you had, a lot of the blown cars all together, but then Halsey was way up there at number 2 or whatever. So it's kind of always gone that way, where you do have that one dominant nitrous guy that's able to keep up with the supercharged combination.
And we do get weight put on us down there, and they get a little bit of weight break, and we agree with it. I mean, you have to make everybody even. But do I want to run that weight break or not that weight break? Do I want to put that kind of weight on over at the PDRA? I mean,
no,
we really don't. But
and we don't want to even put that weight on you guys at World Series? I mean, those cars are getting to the breaking point of being too heavy, but it's what it takes to make the field competitive.
Oh, absolutely. And it's needed. It's agreed.
Yeah, it's an interesting time right now, but it does. I do love the notion of, and like I said, that's what makes events like the World Series special. And I think Halsey's race as part of the divisional event was super cool. Love seeing that. Obviously, Flying H has their big money shootout coming up in September, and those cars are all going to be run together. But Mike's right. We've seen it both ways, and I think I don't know that there's one right answer necessarily. And part of the special nature of the PDRA is splitting those cars up and letting, the nitrous guys compete amongst themselves and the supercharged guys compete amongst themselves. So it's an interesting thing. Who do you see as your biggest threat right now in terms of championship contention, Kurt? I mean, there's so many good cars, but is there anybody that you're kind of waiting on or keeping an eye on especially?
I mean, you obviously have to look for Todd. Melanie's right up there. She's 100 points. That's one round behind me. You got Ward, who just had a bad thing happen and when he pulled up in the first round, on his burnout. That put him out. So that really hurt him for points. The stars sort of aligned for us, but I'm keeping an eye on everybody because it's so tight anyway. Anybody can take us out and move ahead here.
And it feels like Melanie, that's one team that they're just right there. Like they're just right on the cusp of having a couple of stars and moon line moments, and they'll be in the winner's circle, and they're obviously a threat. But it's an amazing thing, man. We're really excited to see all the success you guys are having. It was a great story for the weekend. Our sport is rich with these incredible father-son, father-daughter moments, and it's great to see it, man. I'm really proud of you guys, and I can't wait to see you at the next stop on the PDRA. Where is the next stop on the PDRA tour?
Pro Stars.
We're in Martin, Michigan.
Pro Stars,
Pro
right?
Stars,
Martin,
Pro Stars, Pro Stars, and then Martin.
Pro Stars in the summer, which
we'll be on vacation for Pro Stars. So
Kurt's already written that one off, man. He's going to be on a beach somewhere. Right?
Yeah, well, you have to get Wendy comes to the track all the time. I have to get her to.
Yeah, you got to play the game, man. We should probably have a whole show. I actually had a guy suggest that to me the other day. Like, you could probably do a whole show around how to keep your wife happy while drag racing. Hey, we got to make sure we eat nice at least one night, and we probably better go on a summer vacation, or two to make sure that we balance this whole thing out, man. But congratulations, guys.
Thanks. I always say, if Wendy didn't love this, we probably wouldn't do it as much.
No doubt about that. Mama's got to be happy
for that.
Oh yeah.
I'm telling you, my favorite picture from World Series of Pro Mod in 2023 is Wendy losing her mind on the starting line. I think when you guys won first round, it's just a classic but it just goes to show you how invested everybody is, and it's a special thing, you guys. So congrats on everything, and we'll see you at the drag strip.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks,
I
guys.
appreciate all you guys do for everything. Seriously.
We're trying, buddy. We're trying.
Appreciate
you guys
it.
keep doing
Doing a good
burnout,
job.
and we'll keep telling everybody about it. I promise. All right, talk soon, fellas.
You guys have a good one. Thank you.
You guys.
All right, guys, real quick, I do want to take a second and remind you that each and every episode of the Wes Buck Show is made possible by way of our friends at Stroud Safety. Tommy and Anita Cunningham, the whole team up in Oklahoma City, working round the clock to keep racers safe. Remember to support the people that support us and support the sport of drag racing. Log on to StroudSafety.com. Make sure you tell them we sent you, Mike. We've talked about this, it seems like, on an ongoing basis for months, if not years now, this massive explosion of popularity around drag and drive. And it's the entire drag and drive scene. And it's not necessarily new, right? But it did seem like we saw kind of a second evolution or a second iteration of this. It was initially Hot Rod Drag Week was this singular standalone event. At this point in time, I don't know that I don't know that we've got enough time to name all the various drag and drive events that are happening kind of on a quote unquote national basis, but also regionalized. I mentioned, I think Rocky Mountain Race Week starts this weekend in Tulsa. So there's these events are happening quite frequently, but it really feels like the catalyst for so much of this growth has been Tom Bailey and his team at Sick Week, Luke Nyhoff, the entire group. I can't, we'll have to have Tom name everybody that's involved, but we saw this new energy emerge in the drag and drive scene, and it has spread like wildfire. It's been an amazing thing to see.
You can see it just in the photos and in the videos and just some of the stuff that's captured at these events, that just epic encapsulation of hot rodding and racing. What makes this deal like it never fails. And something like that always pops up. It just reminds me, we got to go to these events.
It sent Wes to the hospital.
Sick Week was one of the most fun events that we went to 2 years ago. Unfortunately, we missed it last year, but it's always a reminder of that.
Well, two things. First and foremost, I think Drag and Drive is this incredible encapsulation of like almost everything awesome about our sport. I mean, we just spent time talking with Kurt Steding and his son Ethan about their racing together, but those stories are just as frequent in the drag and drive scene. Like thinking about Alex Taylor and her dad Dennis riding down the road in their 55 Chevy with a twin turbo big block in it, working on it together. It's an incredible thing. And the competition, that's I think the thing that has really emerged on the back of Tom Bailey's efforts with Sick Week, Sick Summer. Is the air of competition. They've kind of evolved some of the way the racing happens. It's more competitive, but there's also like they've done a really masterful job of marrying that competition with a really enjoyable atmosphere. Because the second point I wanted to make before we bring Tom on was Sick Week in 2022 for me was probably the most fun I've had drag racing since I was racing myself or racing with my dad decades ago, when I just felt I was somewhere with a bunch of like-minded people that are equally as passionate about this hobby as I am and willing to like prove it. You know what I mean? In the face of significant difficulty, willing to prove it. And to your point, JT, I ripped my arm off that week. I tore my bicep in Valdosta, Georgia, 1,500 miles from home or whatever, but I didn't want to leave. Like matter of fact, I stayed at the event, went to Don Garlitz's drag racing museum with the entire crew with my bag, my hand wrapped in ice, my arm wrapped in ice, in a Walmart sack because I didn't want to leave. Like I needed surgery immediately, but I didn't want to leave. We were having a ball. I mean, we were driving and we were doing it in a
better watch those falling prices, buddy.
We did it in a Nissan Pathfinder. And that was one of the conversations I had with Dennis Taylor. He's like, dude, if you think it's fun to drive along, like as much as you like work or anything difficult, you would absolutely love competing in this. And I've told people before, if I were to, table my business interest in what we're trying to build here and go racing, or try to do those simultaneously, I'm going drag and drive racing. Like that's, to me, it speaks to my heart. It speaks to just the experience, the ice cream shops, the gas stations, the bullshit sessions in hotel parking lots. It's everything good about the sport of drag racing wrapped up into one. So without any further ado, let's bring the man of the hour, fresh off Sick Summer, a new part of the Sick Week, the Sick Tour that is taking place. The founder of Sick the Magazine, the one and only Tom Bailey. What's up, Tom?
What's up, Tom?
Not much.
I don't know what more we can say. I just felt like I spent 15 minutes kissing your ass, to be honest, but it's much deserved, man. I mean, I guess let's just, before we recap the weekend and a great week of racing that you guys had, I'm just curious, like a few short years ago, when you were cooking this whole notion up, the magazine, the events, did this level of expansion, was this on your radar? Did you think multiple events across various parts of the country, was that ever on your radar, Tom?
No, not at all. I mean, Luke and I came up with the idea for the magazine by driving. We were on a road trip doing a YouTube video. We actually left Finnegan's shop and we were actually on the way to Dennis Taylor's shop. And we were just talking because they had just folded a bunch of the Motor Trend magazines, or 10 or whatever it was at the time. And we're like, I mean, it seems like there's a market for a magazine that would encompass what we're doing, the drag and drive lifestyle. And it'd be a small market, but it might be cool. And obviously, I mean, with Luke and his abilities with producing magazines in the past when he was in Australia, it's like, hey, let's give it a try. And we did, and we were just blown away. We thought that maybe we'd get 500 people or 1,000 people that were interested in it. And I mean, we sold out the first issue before it even came in, and we'd order like 2,000 extra issues of it. And like, it's just grown. It grew so rapidly that, I mean, you're talking 3 months into it, we're at Drag Week, and I wasn't racing because of, I had just recovered from COVID and couldn't get the car done, and we're at Drag Week and just talking about the stuff that we feel should be different with an event. And in a year and a half, we're going to create an event. Like, and then everybody, Joe Barry and all these guys are like, well, you should just do it sooner and everybody will come. Don't worry about it. So literally, I mean, we come out of drag week in September. October, we say, well, we're going to do Sick Week, but we're going to do it in January in Florida. And it goes on sale. And I mean, the first Sick Week sold out in 3 minutes. And we'd never done an event before, like no experience whatsoever. And so then it was a mad scramble to get staff in place. So that's where obviously Keith Turk and Jenny Smits and people that I've known for years in doing the drag and drive stuff came on board right away to help with everything and organize it. And I mean, the first drag or the first Sick Week was a home run right from the gate. And we had the stuff as a racer. We knew what we wanted to do and what would make it what we feel like could improve the experience. And the one was shorter drives, better track prep, and being able to establish the fun part of it, because so much of the grueling, if you're doing a 400-mile drive and different stuff like that, it takes away from the fun, because a lot of us fast cars, we miss out on the parking lot party when you get to the hotel at night, because we're rolling in at 2 or 3 in the morning, going to bed, getting up at 6 to get ready to get to the track. And literally we're covering the endurance part of it really well, but the fun part of it, not so much until Friday when the whole event's over. So with the shorter drives, we were able to encompass doing more of the fun and wanted to bring that stuff into it and making the checkpoints like an experience, which, I mean, ever growing. Sick Summer by far was the best checkpoints that we've had ever, because, I mean, number one, we now have cities reaching out to us to hold parties for us that allow us to do burnouts. Like literally sheriff department approved burnouts in the streets of these cities. Like it's pretty epic.
I mean, it gives me chills. Like just to think about a sheriff saying that, you know, like, hey, we want these people to come, because I remember my first experience with this kind of culture was in the early 2000s. I went on Hot Rod Power Tour, and I think it was in 2002, I went on Power Tour, and I was blown away by the impact the event had on the cities that we went through. Like we'd roll into these areas and every restaurant's full, every gas station's got a line at it. I mean, we got to a point where we would see people that had signs up like, we have gas, because there were gas stations running out of gas. And it was to see that swell of people roll into a community. It was amazing. But to now hear all these years later that those cities are coming to you and embracing that, because, you know, if you watch TV, like some of the drag racing car culture, I guess, actually kind of gets spun in a bad light with these takeovers and insanity. But now you have, you know, other organized promoters being welcomed into communities. Was that, I mean, how does that impact kind of your decision making moving forward? Because now there are 3 events, correct? Route 66.
Sick Week and Sick Summer, those are our staples as far as they are. And then we have our one-off event. Last year we had Death Week, and that was the most amazing trip ever. Like our one-off events are basically just planned vacations. It's like, hey, we want to go see this stuff, so let's make an event that goes and explores this. I mean, we started in we covered literally from Phoenix all the way up California. Like we went to all the places they said we couldn't go. Literally everybody said your cars are going to get impounded, you're going to get arrested. Like, I mean, all this stuff. So, I mean, we drove Pacific Coast Highway, most of the length of Pacific Coast Highway, and we stopped in all the areas where people said you're going to get arrested and they're going to impound your car there. Because, I mean, it is, there's 2 sides. Like the whole takeover thing or whatever, nope, that's wrong, that's illegal. Like everything is bad about that. And there is proof that if you are abiding by laws and you're respectful to authority, you can do a lot more than you can if you're disrespectful to authority and just a vagrant. Like, and that's the part. Like we get embraced by the communities we go to, because we're a rolling car show that literally with high horsepower cars that are rolling through and being respectful to things, and enough so that like even when we started Sick Week, because we're big with trailer burnout. So literally all our cars, if people don't know, we're pulling a little trailer behind as our spare parts. And we like doing trailer burnouts because they're just cool. So like, and that's one of those things that people reached out saying this is kind of outlaw, like you guys are going to get a bad name for it. And here we are, fast forward a few years later, and the city of Rock Falls, actually Illinois, reached out to us and said, hey, we want to have a party downtown. We want to close the downtown and have you guys come in and we're going to have a band there, food trucks and all this stuff. And we're like, that's really cool. Do you have a spot where we can do burnouts? And it's like, well, we'll look and we'll see this stuff or whatever. Well, in the meantime, we had I can't remember the name of the town. We had another town reach out to us in Illinois as well, closer to Cordova Dragway. The sheriff reached out and said, we're going to shut down the street and you guys can do burnouts on the street. So we go back to Rock Falls and say, hey, this sheriff's going to shut down the street so we can do burnouts. Are you sure you don't have somewhere we can do burnouts? Rock Falls comes back around and says, we met with the sheriff. We did this stuff. We have an area where you guys are going to be able to do burnouts now. And it's like, so it's like they're competing against each other for us to swing in, because literally we come in and we book out the hotel rooms because there's 500 cars traveling with us. So, I mean, that's just our 350 racers, our 150 people in the sick ward, that's who's traveling with us. So we come in, all the restaurants are full, like all the gas stations are full, like everything as we roll through with this rolling circus, you want to call it. And Rock Falls was literally, I mean, our first drive from Byron to Rock Falls was 38 miles. So our first day drive, like the shortest drive that has ever been on a drag and drive, you actually didn't even need to convert your car from race mode to street mode to go 38 miles. So like it's in the city shut down and it was amazing. And like it was on the news and there was it was a town of probably 1,500 people. There was 5,000 people there watching the burnouts at the checkpoint. 1320's got some good videos of it and stuff. And like literally, I mean, they're wall-to-wall people to watch the burnouts that happen there. And this is the first day. Like these cars have to make it another 600 miles to get to the end of the event. And they're going through a set of tires, street tires, and picking up another set of street tires in the next town over so that they can finish the drive. So, I mean, it's epic. And in the Midwest is just awesome. Like Sick Summer, like Sick Week was developed because, hey, I want to set records and we want to do stuff that this can be the fastest. Track prep's going to be on point. We're at world-class racetracks and records can be set. So the mentality with Sick Summer is let's kick it back a little bit. We're still going to have great prep, smaller tracks, but the Midwest area is just an awesome area to be. Like they love racing like nobody else. And the roadside attractions, I'll call it, because literally kids all over the place on the side of the road saying, do a burnout. Like, it's my birthday, do a burnout. And it's a kid's birthday. Like, what are you going to do? Like,
you've got to do a burnout is what you got to do, right?
Yeah. So literally every checkpoint on Sick Summer, like we had officially like 4 or 5 spots that were burnout, like official burnouts. We had another 7 or 8 checkpoints that turned out into official burnout spots. And the police department are around and you'll see them like 2 blocks over and then they just turn off and go a different way. Because literally it is good-hearted fun. This is not a streetcar takeover where you're shutting down traffic and doing any of the crazy stuff. Like this is literally checkpoint, do a nice smoky burnout with a trailer on the back and on to the next checkpoint.
I mean, what a life lesson there is in all this. Like I tell my kids all the time, like you would be blown away how far you can get in life by being nice to people, being nice, being respectful. And I think that that's the point you're proving here is like all these things that people have been saying are going to get you thrown in jail. More than likely, I mean, it's rarely the news, right? It's how the news is delivered. And if they roll up on an intersection being, taken over while guys are hanging out of a car that's banging into people doing donuts, I mean, they're not going to be as receptive to that as a very organized, respectful group of people. And I point back to like my early street racing days, which people oftentimes are kind of afraid to talk about, right? It's faux pas to talk about those things and get off. But it is a part of hot rodding. There is a massive group of people that, enjoy their hot rods or whatever on public roadways and whatnot, and probably do some things they shouldn't, whatever. But it is, to your point, good-hearted fun. And that was always the feedback that we would get from our local law enforcement was, we would much rather you be doing this in a safe, responsible fashion than making meth or whatever else people do to entertain themselves these days. So I think it's really interesting. So Sick Summer, I looked at the schedule, and this is something I want to give you kudos for, because I don't know if it's supposed to, but I was looking at the routes this morning from Byron, one of my favorite racetracks in the country, like the house that Ron Leake built. I grew up racing at that track, and it's still to this day one of my favorite spots in the country. But go from Byron Dragway to Cordova to Earlville Tri-State Raceway, then from Tri-State to Union Grove, another incredible historic racetrack, and then back to Byron. And I was clicking on these Google Maps, Tom. Like the day one, for whatever reason, up here it says how many times this has been viewed. this map with the driving directions, the official sick week route from Cordova, from Byron to Cordova has 133,000 views. Like that's how many people have looked at the map, man. I mean, that's surreal to me. Like that's a crazy thing to think about, 130,000 views of this map for the route.
Right. No, and that's one thing though that we decided to do, because like Drag Week and Rocky Mountain actually changed their way this year, like just coming up for their next week one. But like we're like, what is the big secret with the route? Like, why can we not publish this ahead of time so that spectators, so that people that live in these areas, they know we're coming through? Like, we want them to be on the side of the road cheering us on. We want to stop at their restaurants. Like, we want to know everything about it. So Luke and I, that was a big thing. It's like, well, let's just publish the route ahead of time, because like, I mean, there's the, can you stash parts in a dumpster like along the route somewhere or figure something out? There is, but I think there's more good that comes from that than bad for, and literally there's no money involved. Like that's what's important about this, is like one of the best ways to try and keep the, I mean, what I've been reading the posts about the sabotage cars lately at these tracks. Yeah. Like that's freaking horrible. Like why? Like it doesn't matter how much money you win drag racing, you will never pay for fucking drag racing. Like it doesn't, you can't do it. So it doesn't matter if it's $100,000 purse. Like you're still not going to pay for your drag racing. So, I mean, to maliciously be against someone, like, I mean, that's just,
I was shocked to see that. Like, to me, like, we were always the type that like put our stuff up overnight or whatever, mainly just because my dad was a psycho about it. But it was never like for fear of tampering. And I'm really shocked that's even happening in our community. Like, it's one thing for a drunken golf cart accident or something, but intentional sabotaging cars, I was literally shocked when I saw that and how many comments it had and how many people were engaged in that conversation, because that I just can't imagine that happening at my precious drag races. You know what I mean? Like I feel like our community's better than that.
Oh, and I feel like all drag racers are friendly competitors. Like I don't see, it doesn't matter what part of drag racing, I don't see hatred. Like you maybe not particularly care for someone, but you don't necessarily hate them in a means that you want to sabotage that person. Like, I mean, you want to win with him giving his best and you giving your best. Like you don't want to win because you messed with his car or did something to it. Like that part's horrible. But like, and getting off topic there, but like money can tend to bring different aspects to it. So that's why we do it for helmets. That's why we do it for trophies and bragging rights more than anything, because we want competitors helping each other as much as they can. And that's the part that, like, when there's not money on the line, like, don't cheat. Like, have your own self-satisfaction. Like, your moral compass said, I did this the right way. Like, I did not have a support vehicle follow along. I did not have someone bring me parts or carry tires for me or any of that stuff. Like, that's I mean, we're very fortunate that, like, that is not part of how things are rolling with us, and that everything is still, everybody's out for everybody else to help each other and want everybody to do their best at the end of the day. So publishing the routes is like, hey, we want to know people to know that we're coming through their town. We want to roll through. We want them to support us. We want to support them. And that's where, with knowing what roughly our routes are, that's where we start to have these checkpoints reach out to us and say, hey, we're on your route. We'd like to do this, or we'd like to do that. And it's awesome to support. And at the same point, like, we're there on a weekday. So we're passing through this town Tuesday afternoon. Like, it's not like typically we're there on a Friday or Saturday night. So we're at a time when the town is basically more dead than it is busy, and we can give them all kinds of support by rolling through in the middle of the day, and they love it.
What do you make of like where does that come from? Is that your own entrepreneurial nature to build relationships, your own business experience? Because it does feel like I've had this conversation on this show a handful of times over the years, but that community aspect, like getting yourself ingratiated to the local community and having them invested in the success of your event, like, it's massively important. Like, if you can make an event mean something in a local community, it has a much better chance of spreading beyond those bounds, in my opinion. Has that been a conscious effort, Tom, to like Is that something that your team sat down and said, hey, we've got to build relationships, we got to reach out to these people, or has it just happened organically?
Oh no, without a doubt. It's been important for us to embrace this stuff and make sure that we have good checkpoints. Like literally all our routes get driven ahead of time. Like Luke and I drive most of the routes ourselves and like find the checkpoints. We talk to the owners. Like we want them to know that we're coming and we want them to want us. Like if we go in, like there was a couple when Luke and I drove the 666 route a couple months ago, and there was a couple museums and stuff that we went to that I mean, there's lots of stuff on 666. It's gonna be an incredibly epic event. Like more checkpoints than ever before because there's just so many cool things to see. But like we went to a few museums and we talked to the people there and we're like, hey, this is what we're doing or whatever. And like the attitude we got from them said, nope, that's not a checkpoint. Like, but we go to other ones and they embrace us. They're like, they love everything about it. And yeah, those are the people we want to support. Like not the clock puncher or whatever that's just there because it's a job and
right,
whatever. And that's, and it's easy to build those relationships with the people by talking to them. And like it, and I guess too, the other is so many times, like on other events, we've driven like the route when we're in the event and the people like the owners, like, I wish I knew you guys were coming here because I would have loved to like have a party or whatever. It's like, what idiot doesn't reach out to these places ahead of time and say, hey, we're going to come through there. And I mean, not to call anybody an idiot, but like, no, it seems it's just dumb not to embrace the places you're going to, because especially like Sick Week and Sick Summer, we plan to make those annual events like that. We're coming back to that same area now, doing a different route, but like we love supporting the tracks and all the communities we go through. And now, like, I mean, once again, like I guess to go to your earlier point, did we envision it? No, we had no clue what this would become. And it's like, literally, it's, I mean, call it coincidence or not. It's kind of weird that we started the magazine and then this whole movement took off. Like, I don't know if that's like a coincidence or not a coincidence. It did exist for 15 years before we started the magazine, but the explosion, like there was Drag Week and Rocky Mountain Race Week that existed and kind of call it fringe type stuff. And then when we started a magazine highlighting all the people that do this, like we'll all say that we're not out to get a picture of a car in the magazine or be in the magazine, but we're lying because like we love that when your car's in print, it's still, anybody can put their car on the internet, but somebody else has to put your car in print. So, and that's still the holy grail, no matter what. And that's why we make a conscious effort to put as many cars as we can in the magazine. That's also why the fast cars are never on the cover, because those cars can get coverage somewhere else. Like they don't, are they cover worthy? They are, but like we want to put the little guys because that's what it's about. Like, and you were talking about families and like literally like there are so many families that are doing drag and drive that, I mean, I don't know how they're doing it, some of them, because literally they got 2 or 3 kids that are racing cars. They also have a car. So now you got a family coming with 4 cars. Dad and mom are racing, 2 kids are racing. And like, and it's just, it's crazy how it's grown, but that's what the sport needs is like, you need that entry level person. And that's where the cost of entry to do majority of any race out there is, call it 6 figures and 5 figures minimum. But like literally our cost of entry is 3 figures. You can get in with a $500 beater and you know what? You're running next to a 6-second car or a 5-second car. You're following the same routes. You're in the same pits. Like you're all doing exactly the same thing. Does his car go faster down the track? It does. But is he having any more fun than you? No. Like I mean, literally you can have just as much fun.
It's all relative, right? I mean, and I think, you know, we had Justin Bond, an NHRA Pro Mod driver, one of our World Series of Pro Mod competitors on the show last year. And I remember him telling someone that like, or I can't remember what we were talking about, but he brought up that if the fastest car you've ever been in is a 13-second Mustang, that's fast. Like right. You're going to get the same thrill from driving that I get, you know, from driving my 6-second car because I am desensitized to it and I've done it a lot, but it's relative. And I do think there's like we had an absolute blast on Sick Week and we did it in a Nissan Pathfinder, right? And I mean, it's like that to me, there's a couple of questions that I have. You made a great point about the barrier to entry. That's a significant issue that has existed in our sport for a long time, especially if you want to race heads up, and that's the allure for most car guys. You want to be racing heads up at some point in your career, most drag racing aficionados. And the fact that you can be involved in drag and drive and be guilty by association and be part of that club that includes yourself and Alex Taylor and all these many names that have been built over the years in drag and drive, you're guilty by association, and you're doing it in an S10 that you put a 350 in, right? I mean, it's just, to me, that is a big part of the magic of this, is that you can get involved at any level. And it leads me to my next question. Sick ward. This is something that I think is a really cool concept. It kind of extends to what we're talking about right here, is finding a way to be involved and involved in the event as a whole, but do so as a spectator. Who cooked that up, or what's your thoughts around that? Because we spent the first 30 or 45 minutes of the show just talking about how drag racing as a whole seems to be more focused on improving the fan experience than ever before. And we're seeing it more so in other places, in some places than others. But that to me does seem like a really incredible effort that you guys have made to provide a richer fan experience for your fans.
Yeah, no, and that comes about from like in doing events, and like so much of the stuff just comes because I've done these events for 10 years. So like, and we'll be at the track and we're getting our car ready or we're packing up or whatever, and some guy's over talking to us, and another racer, and he's like, "Oh shit," or whatever, lanes are going to close soon, I got to go make a pass. I'm like, "You haven't been thinking about that all day?" He's like, no, I'm just here to hang out and have a good time or whatever, but I got to go make a pass so I can stay in competition or whatever. And I'm like, there's so many people that are there for the experience, but they really didn't care about going down the track. They just like the camaraderie and like hanging out in the pits and being part of it. And it's like, so that's when we came out with Sick Week. It's like, well, we got to come out with something too for people that aren't racers, that like they want to experience it, but like, I mean, nothing against Power Tour or anything like that, but the entertainment value of that is like, it's a rolling car show. It doesn't have elbow grease involved, to where like Sick Week in our events, like people are thrashing on stuff, everything's getting worked on. You got entertainment value just watching people deal with trying to get their car on the road or down the track, or they're on the side of the road broke down. So like, there's a lot of people that just love that intimate experience with it, and that's where Sick Ward, it's like, hey, this is a way that, number one, you get your feet wet. Like if you've never done a drag and drive but you're interested in it, just come along and Sick Ward. Now, I mean, you guys doing a Pathfinder is a pretty pussy move, but like literally you had air conditioning, cruise control, like, I mean, that stuff needs removed. Like I always tease people or whatever when they have a newer car, and I'm like, we have to steal your air conditioner relay for the week, and you can have it back on Friday, because like you got to suffer somehow. Like you can't just ride around in climate control all week. And they laugh and say they'll buy one at the next O'Reilly's or whatever. But like, but that's the part, and that's where they have a good time following along with it. And the others, we can only accommodate roughly 350 racers going down the track in a day. And there's so many people that want to do it, and that's what led to more events. It's like, I mean, I know we're jumping all over the place, but like we did the first Sick Week, it was crazy. And then now it was another year before we did Sick Week again. And then so when Sick Week sold out again, like right away, it's like, okay, well, we need more events because people want to come do it. So that's where the next thing was like, I've always had Byron and the Grove are like my two favorite racetracks to ever go to ever. And like, so I'm like, I'm Michigan. And everybody's like, well, are you going to do Michigan tracks? I'm like, no, I'm going over here because like I love the fans at these tracks. Like they just have always been amazing. And so we did 6 Summer in that area, and I mean it sold out right away. So then that led to the bucket list stuff, with Death Week was literally for all the haters that says that literally people are just like, you can't drive your car in California. Come do that in California. Come do like whatever, all this crap or whatever. And it's like, I love the people in California. I hate the government in California. So, there are good people in California. I mean, there's a good 1% of the population that are normal. Like, I mean, and so that 1% is great because we can go there and hang out with that 1%. And a lot of those are law enforcement and everything else too, that spoke to the stuff of abiding by the laws or whatever. And I mean, believe me that with with what everybody was saying, I was a little worried when we were doing Death Week and going to California. And I'm like, but we're going to do it. No matter what, it's going to be awesome. Whether our cars get impounded and we get arrested, it'll be awesome. Maybe we drive through it and like nobody bothers us. It'll be awesome either way. So going into it, it was like, we don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be cool no matter what. And we're going to have memories coming out.
Make for a great story. Either way. Whenever you guys like the bucket list stuff, Route 66, whenever, like, as you look forward, Tom, does your mind go to, repeating the same routes or like the same tracks, and it's 6 summer 25 and 26, and you build kind of a tradition out of going to those same places? Or do you feel challenged to try to move that, to forego that event and do it somewhere else? Or how do you see this playing out over the course of the next few years?
No, we like the staple. I mean, Sick Week is always going to be the Super Bowl. Like, I mean, that's literally best tracks, best prep. So ideas, keep that down on those same 4 Florida tracks that we know we can all go fast and set records at. And then 6 summer, same thing. It's like, I mean, the atmosphere there, which call it like Earlville, Tri-State. So Tri-State, when we were there last year, when I left Tri-State, I said, I'm never coming back here. Like it left too much to be desired. But then thinking about it longer, and it's like, we have to support these tracks. Like, we need to help them. And the best way to help them is to give them another shot and mentor them to be a better track. And so we had a lot of meetings with them, including at PRI, and said, hey, if we're coming back, like, literally we need to deal with these items, this list of items. And I can say, which we haven't done anything publicly yet or whatever since 6 summer just ended last week, but like, they showed up in groves. Like, they literally changed the entire environment of that track. It is such a cool facility. And they really came around with everything, and they did an amazing job with being ready for us. And everybody had a night and day experience this year versus last year there. And we know that, like, as call it mentors of the sport, like, I mean, we need to help people get to the level. We need to not just say they suck and I'm never going back. Place. Like, it's the wrong attitude. So I mean, they did an amazing job, but those tracks will stay a constant. I mean, we might mix in a different track or something in that mix of things, but no, love that area. But I mean, next year we're doing two one-off events that we'll have 6 weeks, 6 summer. We've got one that's real close. That's like, we're working on this 6 nor'easter. So it's going to be upper East Coast, and it is going to be an international event. So it is the first drag and drive that will cross a border during the event. So we are going to go from the U.S. to Canada, not Mexico. We're going from the U.S. to Canada during the event. We go to Mexico lots of times during any events, but there's this will actually be not sure how the border crossing is going to go, like, because literally we're going to go and then come back in these cars, and it's kind of like Death Week. Like, something's going to happen. It's going to be memorable no matter what, and maybe good memory, could be bad memory. We're not sure, but we let everybody know, like, get your passports, make sure that you don't, like, this event, you need to be legal to go into another country. Like, so we've got a few people that probably can't come to that one, but
but you will. I mean, no matter what, you're going to have incredible content from that. Like, just seeing those cars pull up to a border crossing will be worth its weight in gold.
Yep. And it's just a bucket list thing that says, hey, it's going to be cool. And like that upper East Coast is going to be just awesome, because I mean, we just look at stuff and say places we want to go. And then we have another one-off event next year, and that'll be 6 Smokies. So that's going to be Smoky Mountain Tour, like some different stuff there. We're trying to nail down all the logistics, but like, those aren't formalized yet, but they are real close. And like, and that's the thing. People want to keep secrets and say, oh, well, I can't tell you anything until it's locked up. No, I mean, I can tell you what our ideas are. I mean, that's what we want to do. And the same with like 666, like when Luke and I drove Route 66, I mean, we did it in a blown 62 Nova gasser and drove that thing all the way home. So I put 2,400 miles on this, bought it. Like, now Jim, the guy that owned I bought it off of, I know that he's meticulous with stuff, but he delivered it to us in Albuquerque, New Mexico. My first time sitting in the car was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, when he dropped it off. Because I'm like, hey, I bought it, but will you bring it to Albuquerque and drop it off? So we got off the airplane, Luke and I, and he rolls up in the trailer, unloads it. He had to show me how to drive it or whatever. Like the whatever, the little stuff with his car. And it's like, cool. We left, and that was, everybody's like, well, did you have a camera? We had nothing. Like, we had this Nova, and that's it. Luke and I get in there, and we drove the thing, the whole 666 route backwards, because it actually ends in Roswell, New Mexico, is where we end at on 666. So we had an alien encounter of our own. Like, I did cover that, like, legit alien encounter. I mean, this is so, I mean, do we have
share
a time
it with
limit?
me. No, I want to hear the alien story.
Okay.
I'm a big alien guy, so I want to hear about this.
All right. So we picked it up in Albuquerque. So we kind of, so route wise, we drove down to Roswell. So we go down to Roswell, and number one, like, I don't know if you've ever been to Alien City or something dragway. Have you ever been to that drag strip?
I've never been there. Van Abernathy, our roaming subscription sales and photojournalist, has been there a couple of times and sent me pictures, like Alien City Raceway.
Oh, it's pretty
right?
epic. Yeah, and there is an airplane graveyard backed up to it, because there's like an old Air Force base there. So there's like all these aircraft that are half tore apart and all this stuff there. And I mean, there was a crazy fire when we're sitting there at the drag strip too. Like, literally, one of the hangars, it was a super windy day. One of the hangars caught on fire and burnt to the ground. Like, so like all of a sudden Luke's covering this content of a fire. But either way, we leave there, and the guy's telling us that, well, where the real Roswell incident happened is about 20 miles north of town. There used to be a sign there. It's not there anymore. And, but that's where it happened. And it's weird that he told us that in hindsight, because literally we're driving, we leave Roswell, and we're cruising along, and it's dark out. We are 20 miles north of Roswell. All of a sudden, 65, 70 miles an hour cruising down the road, the car died. Like 100%. Headlights, engine, everything. And it's pitch black out. Luckily, we were on a straight road, and I coast to the side of the road, and like 100% dead. Like, just out of nowhere, like engine dead, lights dead, everything at one point in time. Coast to the side of the road and sitting there, and like, so I mean, I check the battery cables, I check everything, and like just sitting there in the car, and I'm like, I don't know. And there was we had a phone charger plugged into the cigarette lighter, so it had the little light on it or whatever. The light's out. You're talking 30, 45 seconds or whatever. All of a sudden, that light starts to turn on again and start to glow. And it glue. And I mean, you're trying to start the car, like, it literally dead, not even trying. Like, there is zero power in this car. All of a sudden, the light comes on, like, starts to glow, and then it gets bright again. I start the car, it starts right up. Like, nothing happened. And I'm like, well, that's a weird thing or whatever. Now, granted, we just got the car 3 hours before that or 4 hours before that or whatever. But I mean, I tell Luke at the time, I'm like, that's crazy, because literally we were at the spot where they said, so I feel like whether it's aliens or the government with like some gun that they could take all the power away from the car, like, you see that shit in the movies, like maybe it exists. So, but I'm like, if it doesn't happen the rest of the week, then something is really funky. 2,400 miles on that car to put it in the garage of my driveway. It never happened again. So like,
no shit.
We never did anything to the car either. Like, nothing. Like, it just, I mean, we lost a fuel pump in the car, but like, that experience never had. Like, I was afraid from then, because it's like anytime it was dark. So I stopped driving when it was dark out, because I'm like, it 100%, like 70 miles an hour to black, and you're in the middle of nowhere. So there is no light. So like, you're going to run off the road if you're on a curve, because 100% dead. So like, that is, I mean, true story. Luke was there for it. Like, don't even know. Craziest thing ever happened. And literally where the alien encounter supposedly happened, according to the guy in Roswell that told us that that's where it happened. So,
well, now I want to go there. We'll have to take the Pathfinder and see if the air clicks off.
Pathfinder. You know? Yeah. Let's see if the air stops working. So, dude, epic route. So,
well, I'm excited. My plan is I would like to participate in 666. So it probably in some sort of chase car. I have a dream of buying like an old pro stock chassis. Like, I thought it would be cool to every year do the Jim Yates McDonald's pro stock car as a drag and drive. Like, put a Linco in it and drive it on the trip, sell it, then get another old vintage pro stock car. Jason Scruggs, the red 63 Corvette that's kind of iconic, that car, Tommy Mooney car, it's literally just sitting in Jason's shop. And I've thought, like, how cool would it be to put a blown big block in it and drive like what was the iconic 3-second door car however many years ago on Sick Week, because I think that'd be like, that's the way to do it, you know.
No, that'd be epic. And 666 is like, with that being our one-off event, which we did it for Death Week last year, it's 8th mile and there's no classes. So like, because that is our vacation, like our vacation is the one-off one. So instead of, there's an overall winner still, but it's the top tourist award. So we came out with that for Death Week last year. So it's how many people, how many pictures can you take? How far can you get off the beaten path to go take the picture of the largest ball of yarn, like to try and take that fun part of it. And I mean, I reference Joe Barry a lot, but like Joe Barry said, like when talking to him, he's like, I've been those places, but I never go do it. I always take the expressway unless I have a reason to go do it. And that's what these events are, is like, they're a reason to take the road less traveled. Like literally Route 66. I mean, we've all been on little pieces of it and it's all cool and everything, but Luke went out of his way that we are on as much of Route 66 as we can possibly be on. And I mean, we're driving along. We can stop in the middle of the road in these sections in Texas and Oklahoma and stuff. And for 15 minutes, take pictures, bullshit. No other car comes there. Like you can hear I-40 like miles away, but like, I mean, I said in one of our videos, the competitors are going to think we rented the road for them because there's nobody on the road. Like we have the road to ourselves. And it is just so cool. And the stuff, I mean, one of the coolest things that we passed that when I was on there was an old rest area. Like, and I don't know why there's a picture in my mind of these rest areas that like with the steel roofs with a picnic table underneath it, but you pull your car right up to the picnic table. And then I just picture wagons and mom making sandwiches, or you're getting stuff out of the cooler and your family's hanging out there for a little bit, because we didn't have fast food restaurants. None of that stuff. You had the old style gas station. You got gas there. You didn't get pop there. You didn't get food there. Like it literally was gas and cigarettes. Probably. I have no idea what was there, but like that was it. So these rest areas, you had to pack everything, and you picture all those like AAA trip maps that you had to open up to, like, you follow along to the next page, and there was no GPS, like there was nothing, like, and it was a super cool experience that, like, when we did that, it really made you think, because you're sitting there and there's places where you're on 66 and you can see I-40, and you know that you guys, and Luke and I even talked about, we're on a way different journey than those guys are on. They're in a rush to nowhere, and we're literally enjoying the mother road and taking it in an area that, not because of the tourist traps or anything like that, it's just the road. Like that's all there is, this old concrete road that has been there since the 40s. And that's I mean, just epic road trip. And
it's to me, it's just we all have those memories. Like, close your eyes and think about that time you drove here, you drove there, and you had this crazy trip. And I think the way you guys have made it less about a war of attrition and who can like stay alive through the whole thing and survive it. It's more about, you know, like you said, stopping and smelling the roses a little bit, enjoying that part of it. And that's such a driving force in this whole community. I've seen it happen. Like when you see those walls start to come down and the air of competition still exists, but it becomes more about a brotherhood or a fraternity of people that share a common interest or becoming friends with one another. That's really when the magic happens. And you guys have done a masterful job of wrapping your arms around this community of people. And I mean, all these things, like no big crazy purses. It's just drag racing for all the right reasons. Tom, before we cut you loose, I do want to say that you said something earlier that was near and dear to my heart, because you're 100% right. I'm sure there were people, much like they do me today, that looked at you when you said you wanted to start a magazine, you know, post the digital revolution, like you were a crazy person. But I have that conversation quite frequently with folks that, you know, our circulation's higher than it's ever been. We started in 2005 and we mail more copies of the magazine. We have more web traffic. Everything is more infinitely than it was back then. And I always point to, for a car guy or car gal, there's no accomplishment quite like being in a magazine. And I mean, for all these years we've been doing this, we've had a daily updated website since, like, I don't know, 2008 or 9. I've never really had anybody call and ask me to put them in on the website. They all call and they want to be in the magazine or on the cover of the magazine. And I do think it's a rare, maybe it's the demographic, maybe it's just the way this group of people is trained, but there would be no Drag Illustrated if it wasn't for that thing you're talking about. I mean, I remember growing up watching my dad buy classified ads in the back of National Dragster
buy them just so he could have them on the shop counter and show people that his car is in there. You know what I mean? Like that was the validation. I remember the first time we ever had a car featured in National Dragster. It was like a 4x6 photo. And it was like the biggest happening of my dad's life was that we were in Dragster. And that, to me, it just always stuck with me that there's no amount of winning you can do to offset the expense of drag racing. All you can hope for is a little bit of validation along the way. And magazines provide that in a way that has been lost in this digital age we live in.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. It's like and our circulation just keeps growing, and it's way greater than we ever expected. And that's the part that, like, it shows that if you do things the right way and you do things for the right reason, then people support it and people want it. And and mine actually it was no bigger than my thumbnail, the picture of my car that was in a magazine. And I still have somewhere 10 copies of that because, like, yeah. I mean, you need a magnifying glass to tell that it's my car. But I mean, it's like, that was the most epic moment. And that's what we want to do for people, is like, we want people to give people those epic moments where their car appears in the magazine. And like, just hearing the stories, like in Six Summer, like sometimes like Six Summer, I go there and I didn't participate. Like, we wrecked the Durango the week before, and it's like just there to run the event. And there's a lot of times where I'm torn, like, because I want to race and I want to do the event, but I know that my race mode is way different than my promoter mode. And so there, but when you're there and all the people coming up saying that, like, it's amazing, and I guess jump off subject while I think of this, but like Rock Falls, we had the party there. An old lady came up to me at the Cordova track the next day. Like, and I say old, like, a lot of people are old. This lady was in her 80s easily. And she said that, I saw in the news about you guys at Rock Falls. I went out there and I saw the cars, and I have not been to the drag strip in 40 years. And after seeing you guys, I came here today, and you renewed my interest in drag racing. And wow, it's awesome, all these cars that are here. And I mean, this is like just some random person in Rock Falls that stopped by. And I mean, that's a little story, but like the families that say that, like, I lost my interest in drag racing, and I had so many long conversations with people that are still doing drag racing competitively and heads up series. And they're like, and they'll come to hang out with us at Six Summer or something. And they're like, and I mean, you know, because everybody talks about they're building a car for drag and drive. Everybody's building a car for drag and drive. Right. But they're like, it is so cutthroat over there that, like, if you win a little bit, people don't like you, or they do whatever to badmouth you or say you got sponsored, you don't. And it's like, you come here and it's just a big community. And like, nobody's talking about how good you are, or you get this or you get that. And it's that shared suffering. I think so much of it's the pits that, like, there's no rigs, there's no toters, there's no RVs, there's nowhere to hide. Like, you are pitted so right next to possibly myself or Alex Taylor, whatever. Like, and it doesn't matter who you are. Like, we are the same little trailer in the car. Like, there's man versus machine, and we're all in it together to somehow get this junk to make it down the road and make it to the next track without blowing up along the way. And I mean, that's it. There is no crew to go put your shit back together for you while you sit here, you go have lunch. Like, there's no tuner that's like, well, he's going to take care of that. I go eat a sandwich or go talk to sponsors. Like, no, like, you have to get it done. Like, it's you and your co-pilot that's it. And that's the part that I think is so cool. And
I mean, I know that to me, and that's the feedback that we hear from racers all the time, is like, the racing's great, but it's so secondary to the camaraderie and that shared suffering. Hell, that could be a slogan for all of drag racing, to be honest. But you're 100% right. And whenever you are sharing, it's just this, we're all in this fight together, and it's a battle to get everybody across the finish line, and everything else is secondary to that. It's a special thing you guys have going, Tom. It's been awesome. I feel like I've seen a lot of things over the course of 20 years doing this. Come and go and rise and fall in these different ebbs and flows that exist in our sport and exist in everything. But it's been really interesting, the journey that you and the drag and drive community are on. And I say this a lot, but if you look at the successful things in the sport of drag racing, or the successful things around the world, there's typically one thing they have in common, and that is a charismatic leader. And I know that maybe that's uncomfortable to hear or whatever, and sometimes it is, but I look at the segments of our sport that are thriving right now, and there's someone out front waving
the flag, singing the song, trying to rally the troops. And I think that you have become that and been that for Drag and Drive. And I think as long as you continue to shout from the rooftops and wave that flag, people will continue to follow you, brother. So congrats on everything, man. I look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Cool. No, appreciate the time. So, and not to add one more thing, but spectators, like we're getting spectators in the middle of the week that are filling these freaking little tracks in the middle of nowhere. So
Brian Bolander
that's
from
what's awesome.
was sending me pictures. He's like, dude, it's Monday morning and look at this crowd. And I'm like, it's crazy, man. It's an awesome thing. And hey, man, there's a lot of tracks that really need those weeknight shows or weekday shows or could use something like that. There's so many of these facilities that are shuttered Monday through Friday afternoon. And it's an awesome thing for them to have a reason to kick the gates open and sell some tickets and hot dogs and beer. And it's a great thing for these tracks, man. You're providing a hell of a service. I really appreciate it. All of drag racing does, dude. Best of luck. And I'll see you on Route 66. Okay.
Cool. Sounds awesome. Thanks, Wes.
Appreciate it, brother. Talk soon.
All right.
Hey, guys, I want to take a quick second here and remind you all that each and every episode of the Wes Buck Show is made possible by Redline Synthetic Oils. Real knows real. Redline and the gang down in Houston, Texas have been creating products that perform and protect better than any on the market since 1976. If you don't know them, you need to log on to redlineoil.com today. Like I said, it's very important. We had a clip go viral damn near where it's important that we support the companies that are keeping our sport healthy and thriving. All these things that Tom and I just talked about, everything that we talked about with Ethan and Kurt Steding, all the conversations that Mike, JT, and I have over the years here, it requires these companies that share our passion and share our vision for the sport of drag racing and put their money where their mouth is. Not only are they slinging products to racers and growing their own business, but they're supporting this sport and keeping it healthy. So remember, support the companies that support us, and you can start with Redline Synthetic Oil. Log on to redlineoil.com. Get yourself set up at your shop or your garage at home today. Mike, JT, what a show, dude. We were talking about being able to maybe we thought we would be shutting down by 3:30, but Tom and I got on a little bit of a roll. I enjoyed the alien story.
Tom can talk about as much as you.
I know, man.
I liked it.
It's
really nice to have someone on there like that. I mean,
it's the passion. And we had the same thing last week. You have to have the passionate leader. Or it was 2 weeks ago. We missed last week. Sorry. You have to have the passionate leader leading these movements, leading these, outside the box things. And that alien story, we need to investigate that.
Yeah, I really want to go out to Roswell. I'd like to spend a little time out there. I do think we should go on 666. Like I've told Alicia, I've told her that this is one that was important to me because I thought it would be a one-off thing and it probably wouldn't happen again because they'll go elsewhere. Nor'easter, he was talking about up in the New England colonies. But I really, really want
that. That's going to be interesting. I can tell you some stories about crossing the Canadian border with a rig.
I bet you can. I bet old Charles Carpenter could tell us
possibly with some firearms on board that we forgot to take out of there. That was interesting.
It's I think that I'm really blown away by it because it's like there's some conversation that exists around the drag and drive scene. It's like, oh, is it going to become oversaturated? Are there too many events? And I'm sure there will be some cream rising to the top, right? Like the strong will survive and the ones that aren't as strong will, do whatever they're going to do. But this is it's really interesting community of people because it kind of flies in the face of some of the stuff we talk about with getting purse money up. And it just goes to show you that there's no one clear cut way to do these things. But there are some things that I think successful properties in drag racing and in motorsports and in the world as a whole have in common. And I really do believe if you look at drag racing, I mean, the initial charismatic leader, Wally Parks, right? And then I think in modern times, we've had Kenny Nolling, we've had I think of Donald Long, obviously. I mean, I'm not trying to discount the efforts of the many other people that have been invested in small tire drag racing or radio racing, but it was him that came in on the scene and really shook things up and was a difference maker. I look at funny car racing right now and kind of like grassroots nitro racing. I don't think it would be what it is without Chris Graves. There's got to be somebody leading the way. And what Tom, Bailey, Luke, his whole team, Jeff Turk, everybody else that he mentioned, it takes an army, no doubt. But having someone that truly believes in what you're doing and Tom's dripping with passion for this type of racing.
He's led the charge for so long, you know, and that the troops are going to follow him.
I surely think so, man. I mean, and it's that type of thing is important. I mean, you can continue to look around the sport. I like to think that we wave the flag for pro modified style drag racing and have really pushed that hard. And we've known that we needed to kind of focus that energy and effort because it would be hard to apply it to everything. We do our level best, right? But we also saw some of these other markets being well served. Like radial racing has been well served. Grassroots nitro racing is well served right now. There are opportunities, and there was a lot to learn from Tom. Like, I love hearing about the community outreach and the way these towns are actually reaching out to him. I mean, JT, how many times, Mike, have we gone to dinner in the city of an NHRA national event or a major drag racing event, and you go to the restaurant, you go to wherever else, the hotel, and they have no idea why you're there. They have no idea why all of a sudden on Friday night they're busy, you know,
why you're covered in rubber and dirt. And then why their washcloths are all black.
Right. It is painful. Like because you're expecting that everyone in the hospitality industry in that town's going to know. And when they don't, it makes you feel like, is this it's insignificant that only me and my type of people care about it? So that is a huge thing. And when you're doing that, I like what he said about the Route 66 deal, because we've all been on parts of that road. We go to these places. Someone asked me, have you ever been there? Have you ever been here? Sure. I've been there on the interstate. I've blown past at 70 miles an hour in a rig.
In a toter home,
but I've never gone and seen these things. And that's what makes the drag and drive deal so special, is that when you're investing all this money, time, and effort to travel the country and do these things, you're actually getting to soak it all in as well. So that to me draws in the families, draws in the fans, draws in people like us that just followed the route, even though we didn't have a car. And I think there's a lot of people that sort of take that path as well and just follow these cars and sort of get their feet wet that way. I don't know what Tom's got against a Pathfinder, though. It wasn't a Pathfinder. It was an Infinity.
Pretty big. Oh, it was an Infinity. It was it was a pretty big pussy move, probably on our behalf. But I didn't know what else to do. I thought we couldn't have crammed everybody into a like Dodge Charger or something that we could have rented. I guess a Charger would have worked.
We had Nate in the back seat, man, and Nate would have been cooking back there with no AC.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah. But like, I still look back at that as some of like the fondest memories of my adult life, like rolling around with you guys, eating at gas stations, being stuck on the side of the road with somebody, or leading people down the wrong road and having to turn around in the middle of the night and worry about, jackknifing the trailer or what. I mean, it's
buying
such
$500 worth of booze.
Yeah. Buying $500 worth of booze. I mean, but it really is an adventure. And that's what I think so special about it. It's for all the purists that exist in drag racing and that people just love doing it the hard way. It really doesn't surprise me at all that it's as popular as it is, because drag racing at the highest level is a pretty brutal passion or brutal endeavor, right? Let alone doing it, like Tom's saying, with no place to hide, no RV to go recoup in. These guys are sleeping under their cars. That's
a great point too. Like when we rolled into Bradenton and for Sick Week, and all the stars are there, and they're just got these little trailers, got their cars up on jacks there, where the big rigs would normally be. It's a little bit of a jarring sight because you're used to seeing the biggest and baddest rigs parked there. And hey, is so-and-so around? Oh, he's in the trailer. He's in the motorhome. But no, these guys are just out there grinding.
Nowhere to hide,
down
man.
On the asphalt. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sitting there.
On. Yeah, that's great.
That's where those photos we saw of Alex Taylor and her dad repairing the camshaft on that engine. I mean, we talked about that during our conference call on Monday. That kind of imagery is not going to come from stackers and semis parked in there.
Well, and I do want to say that we didn't even get to talk about the fact that Bryant Goldstone ran away with it, ran a personal best, I think, early in the week on Monday, went 6:40 with a 6 at 225 in the quarter mile in a street car that he drove 700 miles or whatever on 6 Summer. It's wild. If you think about running 640s at 225 in the quarter mile and doing it in a car that you're driving from track to track, it's almost unbelievable. Former cover star of Drag Illustrated, Alex Taylor, took 3rd place. I think she had a 7 flat or 702 average in their 55 Chevy. Michael Manuel took second place. So first 6 second average for him. I think he had a 6:99 average elapsed time. And you just think about all these cars that run so good. I mean, Goldstone's car goes like 420s in the 8th mile. Like for all of our 8th mile fiends like myself, I mean, that's a really fast car. I mean, that like within I mean, that's a pro mod for all intents and purposes, and they're driving this thing 1,000 miles. It's absolutely unbelievable. So, well, hey, congrats to all the winners, Mike, JT, Blake. Thank you guys for joining me. What a deal, dude. I appreciate it. I love that we get to do this every Wednesday. And I thank you guys all for being a part of it. We can't do it without you. We could do it, but it'd be boring and it wouldn't be any fun. So thank you guys for participating in this conversation. Remember, if you've got a story you want us to tell, or if you've got something that's going on that you want to share with us, send us a note. You can hit us up on all of our social media channels, at Drag Illustrated, Facebook, at Drag Illustrated, on Instagram, of course, the Drag Illustrated YouTube channel, or email us, Wes@dragillustrated.com, JT@dragillustrated.com, Mike@dragillustrated.com. We'd love to hear from you. Help us drive some of this conversation. That's our role here, to kickstart the next drag racing conversation. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Later.